there's no one else.
No sound guy, no.
No sound guy. I am my own sound guy, which is bad because.
Oh, you want me here?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're gonna be. I'm microphone 1. Is there
mic 4?
2 and 3? I can do. You want to still be mic 4? Because then your mic
3.
Mic 3. Then mic 2 isn't going to be used. So this is just the interview portion. Let's see if this. Test.
Should we put these on?
Test. Yeah. See if you're. Can you hear me inside them? Because I've noticed.
Very loudly.
Very loudly. Oh crap.
It's kind of not clear.
Hello.
Is yours clear?
Hello.
That's better.
It's clear now. Yeah.
Hello. Let's see. We got headphone level. Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah.
I'm good.
That sounds a little bit better.
Okay. So let's. Let's see if we can get this. Test. All right, it's working. Okay. So you can hear me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Because I can see myself in the. All right. So, how long have you both been members of the Spring Valley Community Planning Group?
I've been a member for 3 years now.
And your name is?
My name is Liz Lavertu.
And so you've been there for 3 years, and.
So my name is Marilyn Wilkinson, and I was a member for 12 years. I took a 5-year hiatus for my work, and now I've come back. I just came back last October.
Oh, I see. I myself have been going to planning group meetings, both yours and at the Valley de Oro, since 1996. I had to take a break because I quit the Jay Harn run version of the East County Californian in 97. So I've been, that's how I know Lowe's. I don't know if Lowe's has ever told you, Liz, where we first came. So I first went just to the, am I blowing your ears out?
No.
All right, because I'm hitting the needle, I'm pegging the needle. I was I was assigned by Steve Saint to go to the, he said, pick a thing, and he said, planning groups are good, and I said, okay. And I started going to the Valley de Oro one, and then I said, hey, wait, what about Spring Valley? And it said, oh yeah, Spring Valley's, we meet at the same building, and it just, that's how it happened. So I remember, like, Jack Phillips. Either of you?
Oh, sure.
Did you?
No, I'm too new to the planning group for Jack.
Jack and I didn't always get along, but I respected his work.
I also remember Ernie Kotnick. Yeah, he was one of Fitchett's friends, and he was the oldest guy. He was there with Chris of the open space up on top of Mount Lookout Point, Dictionary Hill, and he was one of the guys when the fire. His name's on the plaque in the fire headquarters.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Kotnick was there, and I never really talked to the guy because it meant having to yell because he was near stone deaf at that point. Oh, he was very, very old. He must have been close to 100 years old when he passed away. His wife died, and then he died, and they're buried out at the Catholic cemetery that overlooks the 94.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the name that was very. We were his insurance agent, and he was the Folex.
Yeah.
Willie Baker.
Yeah.
He was a good planning group member too for many years.
So, could you describe the strengths and weaknesses of Spring Valley, both as a community and as a business center?
As a community, we have a very diverse population, and we do concentrate a lot on our parks. Recently, we've opened a dog park at Lamar, and we're working on some more gardening, and the County Parks Department just has been really great to us in the past years.
You know, I think that a strength would be that I think we have really good buy-in in our community from our community members. It's one of the reasons I came back. I could pick and choose different things that I had let go 5 years ago, and I decided that I would really like to come back to the planning group because I think they make a big difference in our community, and we make it a point to listen to our constituents and try to make Spring Valley a better place.
So what would be the weaknesses of Spring Valley?
Well, I think one of them is that we have such a huge economic diversifications. And so one of the things that I'm not happy with a lot of the time is that federal funds are found for low-income areas. And so I think we spend a lot of money in the southwestern part of our community or the Bancroft corridor because there's federal funds available. But we can't seem to find the funds available for other parts of the community. So as a result, there are areas of our community that I don't think get resources that they should be getting.
Like where would you think that the resources should be going to?
I think the resources should be spread throughout the entire community. I think health services should be available for people in our community who live near by Monte Vista High School. There is no parks over by Monte Vista High School. There are, and that Rancho San Diego of our community. We have private parks, but we don't have public parks.
You didn't go to when they did San Martin de Porres, did you? Were you there?
No, that's down and I fought for that for many years, but there were people that lived around there on the south side of Mount Helix that were not real thrilled about having that park put in, and
no, I mean,
I finally gave up.
The actual housing development of San Martin de Porres. Did you ever?
Oh, that's the MAC project that you're talking about?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I can talk about MAC project all day long. Yeah, oh no, I fought against the MAC project. The reason why I fought against the MAC project was because I felt that they were, Jake, don't get me wrong, I am not against low income housing, I'm not against poor people, but what I am against is when there are no when the state allows them to not pay any taxes for their services. So we have more of these type of project and this type of low income housing than any other place in the county.
Because I was there at the.
Did you go to the meeting?
I was there at the meeting, and they actually quoted me because I was impertinent enough to ask, did you pay these people to show up? Because MAC had all these. They brought in the people that they brought in the people that would, in a propaganda way, would look good.
Right.
They were all poor,
right,
working class Hispanic people.
Correct.
And I was like, I asked, did you pay them in sandwiches or something? You know, because you can't pay people in cash.
Right.
But you can pay people in, say, goods of some sort or service or something.
Well, the problem is
they hated that question, and that got quoted in the UT.
The problem is that this extends your existing services that you're already. You plan for your community, and you get health services, and you have little league fields, and you have this, and you have schools, and you have you get a handle on things, and then all of a sudden you have all these units that are coming into your community, and there are no tax dollars to support it because they're tax exempt from state taxes. Now we did make them pay for their CSA taxes, which was park taxes, but that was the only battle that we won on that one. So. We have to be vigilant and make sure that, because we already have our fair share of low-income housing. The other parts of the county should have their fair share of low-income housing also.
So that leads me into question 3. Did either of you look at these questions?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. Would you say that Spring Valley is the quote-unquote abuse child of the uncorporated areas, considering how the Board of Supervisors and the Department of Planning and Development Services, there's what they now call what used to be the Department of Planning and Land Use. Now, how they treat Spring Valley?
I'm not sure that abused child is the right term, but it definitely feels like the Board of Supervisors doesn't listen to what the community wants or needs. We have huge housing developments going in without any, additional infrastructure for the increased traffic in the area. We've talked many times about wanting more commercial, businesses in our area. We need grocery stores on the other side of town. Our sales tax dollars are going to neighboring communities like Rancho San Diego. Our roads are crumbling. They tell us they'll repave it, but instead they get slurried. There's a lot of things where I think maybe we're missing the mark as far as giving back to our community. We have so much tax dollars and property taxes that help go to the county, but I feel like we don't get as much back as what we're giving in.
I used abused child in quotation marks because the other term for Spring Valley is, the other term was, that they were using was dumping ground.
Yeah. Well, I think neglected, maybe.
Neglected,
okay.
yeah.
You travel
and
through...
they hated when I used the term dumping ground.
I bet you did. When you travel through some of the areas in our community, and then you go right next door to Rancho San Diego, and you don't see the amount of trees and sidewalks and gutters. And we've always pushed hard to try and get this for areas of our community, and we could do better.
Definitely.
The county could do better.
Well, what I see personally as a resident is that you have an area that they didn't know what they were doing.
Right.
They had a lot of grandfathered in things like the steel and aluminum works and all the industrial stuff on Grand Avenue and Apple and all that little pocket down there of it's M54, right?
It is.
M54 graded.
Heavy industrial.
Yeah, so that's heavy industrial. You could build, if you wanted to, you could build like submarine sub-assemblies
Right.
and then put them on big trucks and haul them down to the bay and dump them in the water.
Concrete plants.
Mixed in with residential.
And it's like right next door to a residential area,
Correct.
which nobody else does.
Right.
Because it was all done back in the 50s.
Before we were there.
And because there were no planning groups in the 90s.
Oh, is that right?
Until the 70s. And it was like, I don't know what the story is, but I have a strong suspicion that there's a long history of lawsuits and other stuff between the peoples of the unincorporated areas and the county or something. Maybe Sacramento finally forced them. I don't know. But it's like the San Diego government, county and city, it seems to be like this. It's built for the developers. And everybody else can just take a walk because what we're doing is what we're doing.
Right.
I should say, I don't know if you know that Voice of San Diego had to sue this very college that we're in the middle of for their plans, what they're going to do with the former Chargers Stadium area.
Qualcomm.
Yeah, I'll call that Qualcomm. I didn't call it Qualcomm. I call it Qual Jack because we wanted Qual and we got jacked.
And now I believe it's SDCCU.
Whatever you want to call it, but it's still Jack Murphy to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we want to talk about the M54 a little bit.
Yes, please.
So do you remember 6 or 7 years ago that the planning group, when Scott was the chairman, the planning group decided we needed to fix or try and clean that up. And the planning group went through, and the planning group members went block by block by block, and we identified parcels that weren't in non-compliance or that had zoning violations.
Yeah.
And we had a meeting, and the county asked us to identify them, and then we had a public meeting with the landlord, the tenant, and sometimes their attorneys came.
Yeah.
We had several public meetings, and the county had told us if they did not comply that they would downzone from an M54. Well, an M54 is a valuable piece of property because it's very rare in our county. And so we told them they needed to clean up. Unfortunately, the county did not follow through, and nobody would follow through from the planning group.
Well,
I think it might be time again to revitalize that.
Yeah, I think
and take another look at it.
Yeah, and that's why at the next meeting, I'll be proposing creating another subcommittee to look at the N54 properties, where not only planning board members can be a part of that subcommittee, but also members of our community as well.
So what happened to the subcommittees of the, because I'm sorry I haven't been there for like a year. I've been busy with this. But
Well, it was about the time Scott left.
Yes.
And then I also left about a year after that
Yeah.
also. And so it just kind of died for lack of, it's a lot of work. And
Yes.
it kind of died. So doesn't mean the problem has not, the properties have not been made to be compliant. We think that if we have M54 also, we think that the county should have an ongoing inspection of these properties. And the county should be making them compliant. Why does the planning group have to do this? We'll do it, but perhaps the county would also help out with it in that endeavor.
Well, because you get the heat. Because the people come to you, they don't go down. They make it very hard to do anything. For the listener, they make it very hard. And if you live in the county, you have to go to the Board of Supervisors meetings, and those are on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And if you're a working person, they're what 9 in the morning
They are,
until
Yeah.
3 o'clock at night, something like that. I mean, or 3 or 4. And sometimes you go there and something gets bumped, and whatever you're there for gets thrown to the bottom of the pile, but you have to wait and find out. It is the most undemocratic system ever.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I always said, and I will always do say, that Spring Valley should be its own community. It should be its own city. It should have its own city hall, city government,
City council.
all of that. What La Mesa has, what Lemon Grove has, we should have. We have the same population density. We're not, what's that one, Boulevard? I don't know how many people are out in Boulevard, but I've heard it's pretty tiny.
Right.
We have more than that. We are a major city.
Right.
And if you combine that with Casa de Oro, which was the big sticking point, because really it should be like the city of Spring Valley hyphen Casa de Oro.
Absolutely.
And it'd just be this thing and have a city hall somewhere in the combined area.
Definitely agree with that. It's just with some of the laws that were passed with the state, it makes it harder for unincorporated areas to incorporate.
True. And that's why I cursed.
We missed the boat.
Yeah, we definitely missed the boat until that law changes.
So, speaking of the county, do you think the biannual meetings with Diane Jacob, aka the Spring Valley revitalization meetings down at the Spring Valley Community Center, are they worth the time spent, or is she just kind of stringing you people along?
I do believe it's worth the time spent. We actually had one yesterday. I was there, Tina Carlson from Chamber of Commerce, a bunch of people from the Sheriff's Department, principals from elementary schools, Diane, her staff, Jim Desmond was there as well. And it's a great opportunity for the leaders in the community to get together, talk about what we've been working on, make sure that our goals are all congruent, that we're on the right page, that we're accomplishing things. It was exciting to hear that there's a strong possibility that a trail that we've been working on and wanting for, over a decade now, around the reservoir might be coming to fruition very soon. So yeah, I mean, some things do take a really long time to get accomplished. There's lots of hoops and red tape to jump through, but as long as that we stay focused and we go to these meetings and we keep them on our plate, on our agenda, and keep talking about them, eventually, they do come to fruition.
So Jake, it's about 10 years ago, and I was at a revitalization meeting, and I walked out with Supervisor Jacob and Bonnie Dumanis, who that time was the, she was with the county at that time. She hadn't yet gone to the city. And we talked about, and I said, "You see that hill up there?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, that's where they want to build that housing development." And I said, could be like the next Cowles Mountain for our county. For our community.
That was Dictionary Hill.
That was Dictionary Hill,
and
I
said,
said,
blast the top off.
They were, remember, and I was chairman of that group at that time for the planning group. I was the one who who really, and she told me, Marilyn, if you don't want that to happen, you need to stay vigilant and you need to work on this. But I brought it to her attention, and I said, wouldn't that be nice if we're going to lose all those trails. 10 years later, here we are, and it's going to happen. It's already been dedicated to open space for the county, and Parks is working for the trails up there. So I truly believe Supervisor Jacob does. It might take a while, but she does listen to us. And I've had a good working relationship with her for many, many years. But she keeps her word to me and to the community, I believe.
Okay. Because I'm just one of those people who feels that I wish that we could be our own city. Just
right.
Because then you don't have to go so far. You don't have to deal with so much bureaucracy. You don't have to deal with... Because you're going from the county to this...
Right. I think things would happen a lot faster.
Yes.
If we were. And I agree with you, but I think that it's very important that we continue to remind the county that we are the size of a city and that we do bring in that amount of tax dollars, and so we deserve our fair share. And trust me, I remind them of that all the time.
So one of the questions I don't have on the list, but the marijuana dispensaries, have you noticed what's been going on down by Bancroft Liquor?
Yes.
All of that. How at one point they had behind Bancroft Liquor, and that's on Bancroft.
It's the end of our planning area.
Well, it's right by this. It's down the street from the the decommissioned school and closer to the 94.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But they had their own dispensary behind the place, and then I don't know who moved them. Do you know? Either of you know what?
So the sheriff's department was talking yesterday at the
And then they moved across the street.
Yeah, at the revitalization meeting that they've been successful in closing down, the illegal dispensaries. That right now, I believe in our unincorporated area, there's 6 operating illegally, which they are working on that. And they are also, because people go in and rent these abandoned spaces, and so they're able to actually go after the landlords as well. So that's been very, very helpful for them.
Because the place behind Bancroft Liquor was not even a storefront. It was an illegal apartment.
Yes.
And the reason why they built the apartment was because they had a couple of homeless people who would live in the yard behind, and the guys who owned the place said, screw it, we're just going to go build an apartment and rent it out. And so that's what they did. And then I guess they couldn't find anybody to live in, because it's a really cruddy little apartment. They said, let's make it a storefront. Who will rent? Who has the capital? Marijuana dispensary. Then those same guys moved across the street, and I don't know if it's the same guys yet again who are on Olive down the street from them. They took over that, it was a wood shop at one point, down near the end of Olive Drive, and it's away from where they were going to build a crematorium, which is another long story.
Is it by the Quonset hut?
No, it's on the other side of the street. It's down away from, God, what's the guy who owns the big trucks, the big truck yard? It's down from there. Okay. It's closer to the fire department. And they come in and out, in and out, in and out. And I just think it's weird, because I'm of two minds about that. It's a business. The property's actually being used. But at the same time, the county is fighting them. It would be better if it was something other than what it is. And, I mean, let's face it, a dispensary is just more or less a head shop that sells weed legally, and that's it. It's not like where you have something else beside it. It's just you go in there and it's like it's a weed McDonald's. You go in there, you buy whatever you want, show them your card, you're in, you're out, you're gone.
but taxes need to be paid on it and the rules need to be followed.
Yeah, I believe that the Board of Supervisors missed an opportunity to, allow these dispensaries to operate legally, to be able to limit the number in the community, to place a location on it, and to earn tax dollars from it, and be able to regulate it legally. We're wasting a lot of money on, law enforcement to shut down these dispensaries that we're never going to get rid of. It is a cash cow operation. You're going to shut them down one place, they're going to pop up across the street the next day.
Well, they're like Boost Mobile cell phone stores. They come in, they take over a small space. They may pay monthly, and then they're gone.
Yeah, I believe if we were able to, allow them to operate, and the community could, profit from the taxes. There's other communities in the state that are doing just that,
Yeah.
and the revenue, to the area and the parks that they're able to do, and the safety that they're able to do, and improvement projects, off of these tax dollars is incredible, and we're really missing those tax dollars because they're still going to operate.
That's true.
We're just missing out on the money.
I think it's really important, though, to have some regulations and not have them close to schools or churches or parks. And the county had identified areas for them to go into. So I think that, it's an ongoing process.
Well,
Yeah.
some people won't rent to them, and some
Correct.
people will, and that's why they take over old industrial sites, because they need somebody, and nobody's willing to move
Right.
in, so they'll just pay cash, or they'll pay whatever amount they want,
Correct.
and it's just easy money for them.
Okay.
So we have 3 forthcoming apartment, condo, townhome projects that are in a mile radius around the corner of Sweetwater Springs Boulevard and Hamishaw Boulevard. And I just want I was at the last meeting. Which ones are actually going to go in, and which ones are in stasis right now?
So right now the Sweetwater Vistas, which is on the northwest corner of Sweetwater Springs Boulevard and
The old
Hamishaw.
Evergreen, right?
Yeah, that one is going to be breaking ground soon. Oh no, that's not the old Evergreen. That's across the street where the old Point project was going to continue.
Where the resort was going to be, Jack.
Yeah, where the resort and
Yeah, you should define for our listeners what the Point project is. I know it's complicated, but like the short.
Do you want me to do that? Okay. So
It's a long story.
Yeah. So real short. So what we were promised was when we started years ago, and we started to.
Wasn't it the late 70s?
Yes, we worked with Gosnell and the Point Project, and we had a good working relationship with them. They would build a tract of homes, or they would build condos, and before but they had promised our community that there would be a resort, golf course, restaurants, shops. They're on the corner of Sweetwater Springs and Hamishaw Boulevard, and these promises were made, but and then they also promised that they would fix the roads and make it a 4-lane road instead of a 2-lane road. So these promises were made. However, every time when they would finish completion, they would need to have a sign-off by the county. And instead of holding their feet to the fire and make them keep their promises for beautification of the community, unfortunately, the county would sign off. And they would promise always, we promise we're going to get to this after the next housing tract or after the next condo projects. And it was never done. So now we have that resort property, and we have a couple other properties right there that we were also. Then we went to the county and we said, okay, we didn't get the resort, but maybe you could give us some mixed use. Maybe you should give us some commercial along with residential, and have a mixed use project. And that does not look like that's coming to fruition either.
it is not. So currently where we stand with the Sweetwater Vistas, there's 3 different lots that they're developing. It's on 52 acres. The positive of this is 27.5 acres is going to stay open space, and they're creating a trail for the entire community to be able to, enjoy. The first lot, we're looking at about 80 townhomes with a density of 8.8. Lot 2, we're looking at about 65 three-story townhomes with a density of about 15. And then the third lot is looking at 75 triplex units with a density of about 10.7. So the density levels are way above where our community guidelines and standards are. But the Board of Supervisors took that space and rezoned it. And then with the last update to the general plan, increased densities for the whole county.
Yeah. Because they seem to really want that that project on Broadway that overlooked the people in Spring Valley, where it's a 3-story and it's next to the old what used to be the Big T Motor Lodge. It's now Broadway Arms because they had to make it an apartment complex to get all the biker people out. They want that kind of structure where it's like 3 stories and tall. And they wanted like tiny lots, and because they've run out of
housing.
They've run out of.
County needs housing. The county needs places for people to live.
Yeah, but my counter is that we have a. Have you seen CETA? The one that's built on the old Coleman College complex down the street from here on Parkway Drive in La Mesa. They still are looking for people to live in it. I don't know how full it truly is, if there's only like 10 or 15 left, but they still are not at like maximum occupancy yet. And that project has been sitting there, and it's next door to established apartments.
Correct.
But it's been there for 4 years, 4 going on 5 now.
Yeah.
And this is not a student sort of oriented place. This is a townhome, upscale. They're trying to get upscale kind of.
I believe that, our whole county, we need more housing. We need more affordable housing. And I'm okay with building more homes in our community. I'm okay with a little bit of an increased density because, doing infill is better for the environment instead of building out into the more rural areas. But when we're building homes and they're telling us that affordable housing is in the high 500s, over $500,000, it's not affordable to people who live in our community currently. And I think we really need to look at who's living in this community currently, who would be looking to buy a home, and what does affordable housing look like to them, and then build based off of those numbers. Because, I don't know who in Spring Valley, I don't believe that, a $600,000 home is affordable.
Well, see, what I've been hearing is that the stuff downtown, the tall buildings downtown, the luxury apartments, they sit empty because they're not lived in. They're traded back and forth like pieces of art back and forth. And they're not really lived in and they're not really occupied. I would prefer to see the county or the city force people to actually live there because it's just
I see people use them
space.
as a second home. For instance, during baseball season. I do business with lots of people who have downtown condos as a second home.
All right. Because that's my understanding was that they were not, that some of them,
Right.
some of the buildings were, not all. When I say, I don't mean all. There's got to be a couple people living there. But the actual occupancy is either seasonal or there's like one or two, the top
Right.
floor, where nobody ever lives there and it's
Huh.
just traded back and forth between wealthy people who buy and sell the things for whatever reason. Because there's a market of sorts. So the last question. Oh yeah, I forgot to ask. So what's going to happen to the Sweetwater Mall on the corner of Austin?
Family
and
Foods.
That will be, that's what we're working with the county on. That's called the Aventine Project. That's on the southwest corner of Sweetwater Springs and Austin Drive. Gosh, through the years they've come back and things have been changing and changing, but the most recent information that we have is that it will be about 92 detached condos. It's just changed hands so many times. It went from Lennar to Atlantic Homes and then KB Homes and then to be honest with you, I don't even know who owns the property at this point and who's...
Well, it was Lambden Family Trust, but they don't have it anymore.
No,
listed.
they sold it to Lennar, who then sold it to Atlantic. Or Lennar became Atlantic. They got bought out and then sold to KB Homes. So it's changed hands. The design's changed a little bit, but the density on that one, you know, is 9. They did go through a zoning change because it was a VR 8.3, and they bumped it up to a VR 10.
Have they warned the people who are renting there now that their businesses are not going to be there? When do they say they're going to be breaking ground?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, and this is not a quote, but around 18 months, but that might have been back when it was in different hands. I've talked to some of the business owners in the area, and they were under the impression that they have a year left on their lease, and that they will not be renewing after that.
Because it's that woman who took over the Home Federal. Did you know that they're doing a dance studio out of
the Zumba?
Yeah, they're doing Zumba out of the old Home Federal Bank building, not the loan building, but the bank building.
Yeah.
Because I found that like amazing that had sat there for so long and was being used for like AMVETs and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And finally somebody came in. I mean, they can't do anything with the actual property. And it seems to me like that poor person's just doing that until they can find another location.
Yeah, and in that area, and actually across the street where the Sweetwater Place is going in, those, what Marilyn was talking about earlier, we were promised, you know, and told that we would get some mixed use, you know, that we would get some businesses along with some residential, because that area of Spring Valley really doesn't have any shopping centers or anywhere for people to be able to go to the grocery store, you know, or even, you know, walk. And our public transit is just, you know, difficult too for people to get around in that area.
Because there's not enough bus stations, there's no trolley, and
so all of those people that are moving into their community are going to shop somewhere. They won't be shopping in our community. They'll be going to the neighborhood communities.
My fear is the earthquake. When the big earthquake finally hits, where are they going to go to get fresh water? See, that's the thing. Where are you going to go to get fresh water, whatever medicine, whatever, anything?
Right.
Or a replacement something, to be able to call out something. Because they're just, my problem with what the county has been doing to Spring Valley is they took an area they didn't know what they were doing with to begin with. They allowed heavy industry and then small houses. Now they're putting in as many apartment, condo, townhomes as possible. But they're not putting in the amenities for safety, because nobody wants to face the facts that we're living in a geologically active area. And sooner or later, it will happen. I was promised it as a child. I'm a grown man now. Sooner or later, it will happen. The big one, the Godzilla quake, will hit us. And what do we do then? Yeah. And they don't have any answers. And that's why I came up with the word stringing along, because it doesn't seem to me like the county has any answers for the superquake that may or may not happen. We may not have it for another 100 years, but at least we were told that it might happen.
Seems we prepare people for forest fires, but we really haven't done enough earthquake preparedness.
Because it's expensive. And it's like, it's pushed. If you're a homeowner or an apartment owner in this county, it's like, have your go bag, have your, you know, and they've been trying to, that's where that whole prepper thing has come in. It's like, well, if the county or the federal government's not going to do it, we're going to do it ourselves. And then the prepper thing devolved into like militias and survivalism, and it's like, you don't need that. You just wait for if it happens, not it's going to happen in 2 years sort of mentality. The last question, it's a goofy one. Is there a future for Spring Valley's sheds, shacks, and outbuildings? Because
Well, I think we kind of addressed that with the M54. But, you know, we need to do better on code compliance. We need to do better, I believe, as a planning group. We can do better. We can, and we need to hold the county's feet to the fire.
I hold the shack, the shed, the outbuilding as what's left of our rural heritage. which got paved over in 1957. But at one time, you know, it was a more rural area. And they're all that's left of like when this used to be a place where you'd have small ranching, goat farms, small horses, which, believe it or not, there's still a couple people on near Crest that have horses in a little corral down in that valley there's just a little of that. My neighbors, the Niswangers, used to do horses. And they used to have a little corral, and then everybody built up and it became impossible to do. So it became suburbia. And it was like suburbia by default. There was no plan for any of this. It just happened.
I agree. Where I live, we actually have a little bit of acreage, and we do have chickens in our backyard. And we moved there for that rural effect, so that we could, and yet be close enough into infrastructure. But there's not very much of that left anymore.
Well, my father built my mother's house, and that house was the only reason they built, and they had to build into a side of a hill, was because there was no flat land left. By the late 60s, early 70s, there was none. It was just like all gobbled up. And so if you wanted to build a house, you had to do real work. And so he was willing to do the real work, and they built this house. But, you know, at the time, it was still quasi-rural. There were not the houses that are on top of overlooking Helix. The ones that are on top of the hill, and those are the ones, when I talk about earthquake, that I'm really afraid for, is I have no idea what footings they have, if they're strong enough, because I personally am afraid that somebody's going to get squashed when the big one hits, because the house will just tumble down the hill onto the road and crush any schmuck who's driving along in their truck, and that'll be that.
Yeah, my dad and I were talking about this just the other day, and our concern, if or when the big one hits, is how many boulders there are, giant rocks on our hill, and that it would just come rolling down on top of us. So yeah.
I mean, the soil is clay. The soil will stick together, but then it will, if it's fragmented enough.
If it's wet, but when it's dry, it'll crumble.
It'll crumble, and then everything will start falling.
It depends on what time of the year it hits, I believe. Because I do have clay. We have clay everywhere in our yard. So I pay my insurance every year, my earthquake insurance.
You have to.
I do.
You never know.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, I do.
It's just, I thought it was amazing that they were able to build San Onofre right by the beach, knowing the possibility that they're, because it's, and if they discovered after it was built, oh, you're on an active fault line, isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic of conversation. Yeah.
Well, my thing is that I find nuclear power fascinating, but you got to do it far away from faults. You've got to do it maybe under the ocean. You've got to do it somewhere where it can't hurt people, and the reactor is designed to shut down if there's any sort of problems automatically, so that you can keep a Chernobyl or a 3 Mile Island or Fukushima from happening.
Jake, nuclear energy is the cleanest energy we could use.
Yeah, but except for the slag at the end. That's the other problem.
That's the other problem too. But it is the cleanest that we can have. So I have feelings just like you do on both sides of it.
But that's mostly.
We could have we could have a conversation about that on another show, okay?
Yeah, all right. Well, thank you for both
welcome.
coming in, Liz Lavertu and
Marilyn Wilkinson.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having us on.
Thank you, Jake.
Right. Thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity to give you our thoughts.
Right. And I'd love to have any of your other members, because you have like 14.
We have 15. We are full.
Yeah, we are full.
You're full?
We had to have an election, and one guy didn't get on. You missed that meeting. Rod Gibbons didn't get on, unfortunately.
Yeah, and
but we're holding a spot for him when one opens up.
I should say finally that I'm